Thanks everybody for tuning in. Today we got a crazy episode.
Ooh.
We're gonna be telling y'all. We know y'all see that title. We're gonna tell y'all how not to be young, dumb, and broke. And it's gonna be great because I'm pretty sure all three of us have been young, dumb, and broke before. And it's mainly just a mindset. So we kind of want to tell y'all how to get out of it and how to start having a better year, starting in 2023 and leading into 2024. So let me just go ahead and introduce everyone. So, guest, may you please let everyone know who you are.
I think that's my intro. Yeah, I'm Joe Ignace. Yeah, I graduated University of Tennessee, 2018, 25 years old, married for about a year, own a fitness business called Elevate Wellness on Instagram. You can check that out. Started a podcast called On the Side of Truth, which is all about helping young people be more successful, basically, in all aspects of life. Talk about things that aren't talked about, you know. I like our episode name. How Not to Be Young, Dumb, and Broke is a great way to describe my podcast, you know, with faith enacted too, you know, so I think that's important. Gonna finish up a book by the end of the year. So there you go. A little bit about me.
Glad to have you. Nah, for real.
Yeah.
Devin, that's for you. Wait, is that your wife? Is that your wife, Joe?
Yeah, that's my wife.
My bad. My bad.
Oh, by the way, tell them about you. Tell them you're married, man. You gotta let them know
what's my thing. That's my wife. I'm married. Hey, she's supportive, man. That's good.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So one day I'm gonna work out to be like you. That's the end goal, to be married. You know, that's the end goal.
That's a couple of my students I've worked with before at this internship called Southwestern. So
that's great. Let's get into this thing. Tell them who he is up top. Tell them who you are so we can get this thing rolling and flowing.
Cool, let's get it. So if you don't know me, well, this is your lucky day. My name's Christopher Cooper. You know, we got this nice podcast going. I'm one of the hosts here. We got my boy D-Lay. He gonna introduce himself later. Just a little bit about me. I do a lot of things. I'm real rounded, I should say. Not just a school person, not just an entrepreneur. So, you know, just following God, and that's my main focus right now. So I'm willing to, you know, drop all the jewels and everything like that. So go ahead and let them know who you are, the best co-host in the world. Go ahead and tell them who you are.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the great introduction. Look, everybody, my name is D-Lay. People call me, or Devin Lay, whichever one you're more comfortable saying. I do a lot of different things, management, marketing, social media marketing. But the main thing I do is help out the people. You know what I'm saying? This is why we got the podcast, to help out folks who are young, dumb, and broke. We're trying to get you out of that, okay? And let's get into it, man. Let's talk about the topic. Let's get into some of the initial questions, man. Oh, my goodness. This topic is going to be absolutely crazy. And it's really actually hidden in this current situation we're in, where we're in a strong recession and people aren't thinking. So we need to help out the people before they get way too down before it happens, okay?
Yeah. So just to start it off, I feel like, you know, if we're going to talk about how not to be young, dumb, and broke, we first need to clarify what we mean by being young, dumb, and broke. So, Joe, if you could just go ahead and tell people what are the characteristics of, you know, a young, dumb, and broke mindset and things that those type of people do and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's probably a lot of ways to describe this, and this is not a catch-all sort of, you know, description of this type of person, but it's just maybe some of the similar habits that people have when you're young, dumb, and broke. I remember a student friend of mine in college when I was like a sophomore, and he was basically trying to look cool. And I remember he bought a really cool Camaro for like $60,000 on a loan when he was in college, going to school on a scholarship. And the stress and having to work 3 jobs, for example, to try to pay that off, it screwed up some classes for him and things like that. So that would be, for example, a type of person where you're trying to get this feeling right now, right? You're trying to feel really good right now, look cool right now, at the expense of your future, for example. That's what I would describe young, dumb, and broke, right? Doing something right now that feels good, look good, maybe as a status, it's an appearance, it's a facade is what I'd call that. And it's giving up your future. You're spending your future on right now. So that's what it means to be young, dumb, and broke.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that answer, man. I love that answer. I mean, from what I gather, at least when I'm understanding, it seems like it's more of a mindset thing. It's the way you think and the way you try to fit into society, fit into people who may not even care about you at the end of the day. So it's like, it's this weird obsession with people being like, I need to be around these people. I need to fit in. I need to make sure I look cool. I need those style points. So let me put myself in more and more bad situations and just hope something better happens eventually. And it's like, oh my goodness, you're young, dumb, and broke. Like, why?
Yeah.
That's the way I've been able to understand it. Coop, you got anything new to add?
Honestly, bro, I feel like it's nothing wrong with starting off life being young, dumb, and broke. But, and you know, it's nothing wrong with like working towards something and being young, dumb, and broke. Well, the dumb part, yeah, but broke is nothing wrong with that. So I feel like what classifies you as young, dumb, and broke is what you want out of life and what you're working towards, right? So if you just want, like Joe was saying, you want the fancy cars and materialistic things, you're young, dumb, and broke. Your mindset is wrong. So I feel like it's kind of what you're working towards in your goals. And if they don't align with, a wealthy mindset and a wealthy purpose that's going to lead you and your family to a better, more comfortable life, I feel like it's young, dumb, and broke.
Okay. I like the way we're going right now. I'm really getting it. So we're in a current situation in 2022. We're not in a recession. You know what I mean? We're not in a recession, guys. Okay. So what do you think is keeping people broke in 2022? I mean, there's money coming out the air. You can do an online business. There's 50, 40,000 different versions of online. What is keeping people broke in today's society? What do you think, man?
So I was actually looking up the statistics on this. Yeah, we are about to hit a recession. I mean, if you look at like the housing market, for example, if you're in real estate, I mean, prices are dropping like crazy, and inflation's insane. So the reason people are struggling is because of inflation. I mean, that's a lot of it does have to do with inflation. Things are more expensive. Your wages aren't that much more, for example. If you're a young person, I mean, that's just part of life, right? You start out broke. I mean, that is just part of it. And you take some time to build enough credibility to make money in it, and you have to go do some really hard things. And I think the biggest reason, again, it comes down to a mindset of whether or not you're financially well off or set, as you could say. Because again, if you're 19 and just don't have debt, that's probably pretty good right now, right? In a lot of ways. But I think the biggest thing is just focusing on doing things that are hard. For example, like I worked for this company where we go door to door and sell stuff, right? And the average student is supposedly supposed to go do that, right? And the average student makes like 11 grand or something, right? In a summer. And maybe that's not a ton. Maybe it's a little bit. Maybe it was more than I was making growing up in the summer, for example. And so I went and did that. And it was one of the most difficult things you could do, but it worked. I made 11 grand my first summer, and I did even better after that. And so I think the biggest thing, if you're like struggling, is you're not willing to, a lot of people aren't willing to put in the effort or try something new that seems out of the box, even if it's proven. Like the company that I went with was 168 years old, for example, right? And so they'd had like 300,000 people or something do the program before, and it was very systematized, right? If you follow the system, you'll make money, right? And it's funny how people there's systems you can go make money, and then it seems like a willpower thing, right? It's all in your head. There'd be so many people who could do great at it. You had the pedigree, and they would psych themselves out. They would overthink. They would do this thing called paralysis by analysis, right? They would come up with a million ways, to fail, right? They would just think, and then they would never do anything. And the summer would hit, for example, and then they would just go do the same thing they've always done. I call that a small town mindset, even if you're from a big city. A small town mindset is where you always just go do the same thing you always done. You always get the same thing you always got, right? If you do the same thing you always done, you'll never change, right? So I think that mindset, is going to be really, really hurtful in a long-term perspective. I think we'll get into that later, but that's called a fixed mindset.
And we actually have a question right here. It says, what steps can someone take to bring their vision to life?
Ooh, it depends. I mean, it would depend if they have a vision or not. From my experience, most people don't have a vision. So maybe we'll just start with how to create one in a simple way. If you already have a vision, we'll get to the end of that question in a second. But what I always coach people to do is 3 steps. You want to make 3 lists, and then you want to go have action towards those 3 things. And it's called a be, do, have list. You can call it whatever you want, vision casting. What you do is, if you're on this live, go grab a piece of paper real quick, and I want you to write down the top 25 values of your life, top 25 things you care about. And if you get stuck on 1 or 2, because most people get stuck at like number 7, because then you'll realize for the first time that you've never thought about this before. And you probably don't think about it on a daily basis. What are your top 25 values, right? And think about, when you're stuck on 7, think about at your funeral, what do you want your son or daughter to say about you at your funeral? And the funny thing is, for example, I was telling Christopher here, we were having breakfast, last Friday morning, and we were talking about, this is the chapter of my book about this concept, this idea that nobody ever wakes up one day and is like, man, I want to go be an alcoholic today. Nobody says that, but people become alcoholics, right? So how do you become an alcoholic if no one ever sets out for that goal? Well, it's a lack of direction. It's a lack, right? You start following your feelings, for example, right? You start following these dopamine releases, right? You have no direction, no value, right? Because then, people, what are they going to say at that funeral? Oh, you're an alcoholic. No one wants to see that, right? But no one thinks about their legacy or what they want their life to amount to, right? While they're here. And so you got to think, okay, what do you want people to say about you? Do you want them to call you a liar? Okay, so maybe honesty is important to you, right? So if you don't know, if you're stuck at 7, right? If you don't know what it is, start thinking about what you don't want to be. Do you want people to say that you were lazy? Ooh, right? You're in college, you're probably lazy. Most people in college are really, really lazy. So is that really what you want? Because what we all find is when we don't live up to those values and that integrity, we usually get pretty upset, right? We actually feel worse about ourselves. When we go down this spiral, you go in this cyclical thing of like, oh, I messed up. Dang it. I'm mad at myself. Oh, I'm mad at myself for being mad at myself. And you go in that and you keep going. Like the feedback loop from hell. That's from a book I read. Feedback loop from hell. But if you just have a B, one of the first of 3 steps, right? Just have a B, your 25 values of who you are and what you care about. It's going to start pointing you in the right direction. And when you first start it, you're probably not going to know your overall vision. It took me doing this list and really thinking on it, talking to mentors, finding mentors. If you don't have a mentor, go find a mentor, so ask somebody.
Or go find a mentor. Yes. Go find a mentor. You do not know the answers.
Multiple mentors.
Multiple, so many, right? Go find people who are smarter than you, better than you at things that you would like to learn how to do, for example. But even just having that B, it's going to tell you what kind of people to spend time with. Because another issue that holds people back at being young, dumb, and broke, it's who they spend their time with, right? They don't have their values. So they spend time with everybody. Well, you don't want to spend time with everybody because you want to spend time with people with those similar values. Now, it might be your mission, right? It might be your mission to help people who maybe don't share those values or struggle with those. And that's okay, right? You need to go spend time with those people. But like, who's your inner circle? Most people don't create an inner circle. They don't think about who are my top 5 friends? Who are my acquaintances? Who are people whose opinion I literally don't care about? Even if because some people are going to have an opinion about you. And that opinion, either you're going to take it to heart and it's going to hold you back, especially if it's negative, or it's not going to matter to you. And you're just like, you know what? They don't get it. They don't get it. So, okay, if you have those values, now you know who to spend time with. Spend time with people who are really good at those things. And so once you start spending time with those people, you're going to start hearing some things. You're going to start learning about some things. That's where the second list is starting to come from, your values. So if you want to be honest, you can't go be a drug dealer. Like that doesn't usually go together. If you would like to be an honest person, they're not together, right? So there's certain jobs that you are gonna cut out of your life once you have this list, and some of them are really tempting. Greed is a big thing. Making $1 million a year sounds great, but are there things that you can be doing that make you $1 million a year, help you live the lifestyle you want? That's also your mission. It's probably harder to get to, but it's going to be worthwhile. It's going to help a lot of people, for example. So the next list, you're going to do your do list. You're going to get 25 things that you want to do in your life that relate to your B, to your values. So like one of mine's I want to be relentlessly encouraging. Every single meeting I have, every single conversation I have, I always say, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And right at the end, no matter what it is, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And that small example, the stat on that is the number one reason people quit their job is they do not appreciate. So appreciation, just putting that in with your value, boom, right there, you're making people feel amazing. And that helps you build a brand, for example. Other do's would be like, start like a nonprofit that helps people, like high school kids, because that's one of the things, man of God, be impactful. So I want to be impactful. So that's where that sort of came from for me, right? Another do could be like being a soccer coach for your kids, something you want to do in your life. You want to write 5 books. You want to do a podcast. You want to do whatever it is, right? And you come out with those 25 things, and the why is going to fuel those, and those will come pretty quick. And if you just keep working on it, like you'll get 25. They'll take you some time. Again, you've probably never thought about this. So taking you time, that's a good thing. New things take time. The last thing, so third one, right, is your have list, right? So you've got your values, you've got your self-actualization is what that's called, right? Self-actualization, do what you're going to accomplish in your life because, and you're going to be like, okay, now what's the lifestyle I'd like to live? Because you also don't want to burn yourself out, right, to death, just working all the time. But, obviously, if your mission is really important, then that's great too. So lifestyle, right? So for example, like I want to have a soccer field in my backyard. Why? Well, because I love soccer, but it'd also be really cool to have a community of people who just come play soccer at my place. And that's a way to go minister to people, right? That's a way to go connect with people. A basketball court in the backyard, right? Having places where people can come together. That's where my wife and I want to be. That's our vision, right? We want to be that connector. We want to be that community-driven, type couple, type parents that we want to make some changes there, right? We want to make some lives be connected, right? People who are unconnected, they struggle, right? People who are connected have support. It's so much better off. So that's some of the haves, right? Some of the other halves can just be like, have a smoking hot wife. That one's checked off the list. So that's good. Other halves can be, some of the halves can be fun too. It's like have, a really nice whatever car at some point, right? But the haves, right, some of those materialistic things, they can be fun, but again, they're the least important thing compared to be the do. Some of them are just, what's the lifestyle? Okay, I want to have my Saturdays. When I'm 25 plus, I want to have my Saturdays free. When I'm 30 plus, I want to be retired at 55. So these have lists, right? So you get your B's, your do's, your haves. You do them in that order, you'll be set up pretty well to get started. And then action would be getting those mentors. The problem with young people is they start with the haves and they do whatever it takes to get the haves, and they become whatever they become in order to get the have. And that's backwards. And then they look back and they feel bad about themselves. So,
Gee, I'm not gonna lie. You just dropped so many gems right now. Like, I feel like you really just gave people an entire blueprint. Literally, that makes your vision stronger within itself. And the main thing that prevents people from chasing their dreams because they don't know how to. I feel like if you do it the way you talked about, which is very detailed and clear, very precise, I feel like people can start seeing the difference in their life.
And I want to add some more to it. because that was straight fire, by the way. I want to add some on to that. I mean, man, like the whole step. I hope you got your sheet of paper full right now, because you need to be writing stuff down. That's all I'm gonna say, okay? But from what I can tell, at least, is one of the core things is that people need to make their vision their lifestyle. They need to make sure that's something they constantly are doing. It shouldn't just be an emotion-based thing. It should be something, a habit. It should be a duty of yours that you always participate in. That's why when people say, "Oh, well, I just don't feel the same that I used to feel." Well, it's because it's not a part of your lifestyle. You don't do it all the time. So you only did it because you had that fire. You're like, "Oh, I'm hyped up. Let me go do it." That's not going to last forever. So you need to actually build it into your lifestyle. That's why he says make sure you're around the right people, because you're already going to be in that lifestyle, so where it already fits everything you're going to do anyway, right? It fits your values. It fits your dues. It fits your halves, right? Because it's already what you were doing. So, I mean, that's one of the core things people don't do is that they say, "Oh, I'm going to put everything I got," but that burns out in like 2 weeks, right? Like that, I got to get it done. That burns out in like 2 weeks max. You're like, man, well, I went hard, right? And then you're tired again because you were never in a constant system that was going to support you in the thing. So that's what people got to start building, is that habit, the habitual nature, and build that duty in them to say, I do this because it's up to this value of mine, and this value holds me close to earth, right? And that's why I do this. So they always have a reason to do it, right? Instead of saying, well, I'm passionate right now. Well, that passion can leave, but if you have a duty to something, you have an obligation to something, you have a mission for something, other people rely on you, so now you have to get that thing done. It makes you work harder, and it makes you do it for a long period of time. That's all I have to add. You know what I mean? But yeah. No, Joe already hit his burner, man. I'm trying to stack up to Joe right now, man. He already hit the burner.
No, that's really a great point, because it reminded me of Rich Dad Poor Dad. The author was like, this might not be the best book. He was like, I might not have written the right words, the right placement. The chapters might be out of place to some people. Some people aren't going to like it. But he said one thing he was going to do the best out of everyone is market his book, put it out there. So it's like, if you want to be a rapper or a clothing line, whatever you want to do, it doesn't have to be the best. You just have to treat it like it's the best and work hard like you want it to be the best. So I feel like you were saying, it's not about being motivated, because some days you aren't going to be motivated. Some days you're going to wake up and want to quit. It's all about consistency and doing it like it's your purpose, aligning that with God, and really tying it all back together, making your whole life a loop.
Absolutely.
We definitely dropping some gems right now.
Absolutely. I think, just to add real quick, we go to the next question, but
okay.
I really like what Christopher just said. Your true character is reflected in the moments you want to do something the least.
Most definitely. Muhammad Ali, when he used to train, right? I just found this out. When he used to do push-ups, he would only start counting when it started hurting. He would bust out about 50, and when he started feeling the tension in his arms, he would start from 1. That's a tough mindset to have. He wasn't the best fighter, but he carried himself like he wanted to be the best fighter, So it's all about that consistency we talk about, because people look at these legends and look at these rich people and they're like, oh, they're just so far away. But it's all about consistency and building yourself up, building your foundation to make that legacy and whatever your passion is.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to understand too that the people who are the super successful, it's like, what is success anyway? I mean, you got to come up with your own definition, 1, but 2, they're not that special. They just learned and failed a lot, and they were just the people who didn't give up. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. They're just people who didn't give up. The people who are the most successful is people who did not give up. Most people just give up. And that's a habit, right? You can change that. But if you consistently do that, you want to start rectifying it, right? Very quickly. Because how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're quitting on things that are small, you're going to quit on big things too. So don't do that if you would like not to be young, dumb, and broke.
So I love the way we're going right now. The route is going so smooth. We've dropped so many gems, and we've given a lot of people the mindset of how to think properly and kind of move and what they should be at least focusing on. So my question is, could each one of us give 2 to 3 actual activities what they could do that would help them at least build a strong discipline, build a strong surrounding, so they're in a proper environment to where they're in a good position already? Because some people are already overweight. They don't think properly because, smoking weed or doing drugs, right? They don't surround themselves around the right people. What are some examples of things people could do to keep them already in good positions to where they can actually apply some of the knowledge we're doing right now?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll just give a couple. I think this could be a very long list. It just depends on where you're at. This actually is a pretty subjective question. I mean, if you're really struggling with something, the first step is probably talking about it, right? And admitting it with someone, a good friend, mentor, a counselor possibly. And again, talking to someone about a problem that you have is not a bad thing. It's totally cool. The fact that you want to overcome something, the biggest inhibitor to talking to someone about is embarrassment. What you've got to realize, like the barrier to getting on a good track is personal personal shame and embarrassment. You got to realize that every single person that's ever, so many people have gone through the same thing. That's the point. So many people have gone through the same thing, have the same story. And I believe this is the devil, but what the devil wants you to do is convince you that you're the only person that's ever felt this way. And then he wants you to be alone, right? But human beings were not made to be alone. So go connect with someone. I think that could be the first step for most people in almost any situation. Go talk to someone about it. You know, pastor, again, counselor, really good mentor, somebody you really deeply trust, not talking to just any old random Joe Schmo on the side of the road there. Because then you're probably more embarrassed and it may hurt. Other couple habits though. I mean, if you're on a good sleep schedule, there's a good book called Why We Sleep. It goes through a lot of the compounds that go through your brain when you're sleeping. And if you literally don't sleep, you can't build muscle. You build up cortisol in your brain. So like some of these people do 3 hours of sleep, right? Literally their brain releases this chemical that is like poison in your head, and it stops your entire body from functioning at a high level. So
as you said that, because people are always like, oh, work so hard, like put in 50 hours a week and you're going to be rich. But bro, you need rest. I'm just so glad you're saying it right now. Thank you.
Right. So talk to somebody, admit something, right? Get it off your chest. It's okay. Accept it. Accept where you're at. Basically, you need to sleep. That's a huge one. Again, people they just don't sleep. So if you don't sleep, put your phone in a different room. And when it goes off, you'll have to get out of bed and you won't go back. It'll be great. Just put your phone in a different room if you struggle with sleep. I think a third one too is just like, I don't know what it is, but just limit the amount of time you're on this device. Like what you're doing right now, like limit this time, because not right now. He's talking about not right now, but in general, right? You want to have your pockets of when you're going to watch something, and you want to, like, I dare you to monitor everything you watch and write it on a piece of paper. Just write it down all throughout the week, and you'll probably laugh at yourself about the goofiest, weird videos that you watch, and put how long you watched them for, right? I mean, your screen time is off the charts. I think the average screen time is like 7 hours a day for most people. Something stupid like that. I read that somewhere. It's probably changed. It's probably worse. And the thing is, like, it's easy because the way these are designed, there's a good documentary. It's on social media. I can't remember. It was on Netflix or something. Oh. You can just Google it, and
Network, is that what it was?
So that's a movie about Facebook, but there's one that's a study about the effects of social media on your brain and how they're designed by people who used to work at like Twitter and all these different places. But like Instagram, the color scheme, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, the way they're made is designed to get you a dopamine hit when you hit the button. It makes you feel good. They want you to make you feel good. There's all these little things that are trying to get you here, and usually your mission, your vision's not here. You can use this as a tool to help to do things, right? But you just want to put a limit, because like this is a healthy thing to be listening to. You're trying to grow, you're trying to learn something, but there's definitely unhealthy things that people watch all the time, right? So those would be my couple. There's many more. Yes, somebody put in there like, eat good. Yes, you need to eat also. Those are also good things, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you got some? What's some of your
Yeah, I feel like just read. I feel like, people can stop getting on their phones so much, but it's like, what am I going to do? And I feel like you might find another negative habit or hobby. So try to do something to keep you creative, something to make you money. And these are all hobbies. So a hobby to keep you creative, hobby to make you money, and a hobby to help you exercise or whatever. Because we were just talking earlier, Devin, about you doing intramural sports. And it's like, you like doing it, but it's also you working out. So things like that are really great in order for you to, really kill two birds with one stone, right? Have fun working out. I'd say read and just focus more about bettering yourself every day. Just talk to yourself sometimes. The most sane people talk to. I don't know if y'all do it, but I talk to myself a lot. How do y'all do? Y'all talk to yourself a lot? Just a little bit?
Self-talk is incredibly important. If you guys ever go sell stuff or whatever, if you were ever to go door to door ever, or just like in general sell, I went from doing pretty well, like sales-wise, and then this one week I was like, okay, I'm literally going to encourage myself 24/7 this entire week, and jumped up, like doubled my sales that week, just because of the encouragement. Like self-talk is a huge thing, and people's self-talk is so bad. Think about the most negative thing you thought about yourself today that you even said out loud, right? Like it is destructive. Everybody does it. It's destructive self-talk. It's negative, right? And this is how people are programmed, right? Because if you think about how we're programmed and conditioned in life, you're told by every advertisement that you need this sort of cream to look good, for example. And so you're constantly, your self-confidence is in question in anything that you do. You got to work on the self-talk and find the things that you love about yourself that are amazing, regardless of what anyone tells you. You're just going to get a lot of nastiness nowadays, especially when people can hide behind a fake name, for example, if you're social media,
Yeah.
I mean, I want to give my 3 real quick, and then I want to go into this question real quick. But from what I could tell, at least with the self-talk, I was going to actually say meditate. I think people being able to actually sit down and be in a quiet room with it's just them and their thoughts, it's actually very healthy, because we're on this current society where every second of every minute you're looking at something, and something's flicking, and something color is popping, and something bing is over there. there and the ring is there. It's like, calm your brain down, right? Like, calm yourself down, because you're getting used to everything happening at all times. And that's how social media is literally programming you to constantly want something else to be happening, because that's all you know, right? And that's why people all of a sudden it's a spike in ADHD. It's like, well, because you don't let people sit down and just chill. Like, you encourage them to be on a tablet just scrolling and playing games when it was there. And you wonder why when they're 5-10 years later, they're like, oh, I can't I can't sit still. Well, duh. Like, so meditate, be able to relax and be to yourself in the silence, right? Where you're in nature, just be out about nature, just sit there and observe everything and just relax, okay? Some people need to actually learn how to calm down and just let the world talk to them, okay? That's my first step. Like I said, exercise, stay fit, right? Keep your body physically okay, because shockingly enough, when you're fat or when you're obese and you aren't, physically fit, it makes you actually very sad. Who would have known? It's crazy, right? The body doesn't like you being fat. It's a crazy thought. I never would have known this, right? I guess, science is just this new thing, right? But exercise, right? It increases your overall testosterone, increases your health of your body, it increases blood flow, it increases everything, so your body works more efficiently, right? So when you do need to go those hard nights, when you do need to do this thing for a long period of time, you can actually do it without being like, man, I'm just tired today. You won't feel that as much, right? And then thirdly, I say read your Bible. I'm assuming Christian men here, and we all, represent our Christ and learn our Savior. So read your Bible, stay in it, because you lose everybody. You have nobody. There's one person you do have. That's your Lord and Savior, okay? So that's what I would encourage people to do, is meditate, exercise, and read your Bible, because those will definitely keep you in the right place, okay? But Joe just asked, Mustafa asked for Joe, what habits would you allows you to stay focused throughout, when you were in school, your school years, or whenever you're in a long period of, a semester, a long period of just work, what habits keep you focused?
Yeah, a good question. Yes, and go Jesus. That was great. Thanks for saying that. Biggest things for me, right? So you just got to have your set things, right? You're going to have several different schedules. You got an eating schedule, you got a sleep schedule, you got a school schedule, work schedule, right? You got a social schedule. So you've got all these different schedules. And I think where people get lost is, again, they'll prioritize things in the wrong direction, and then they will unintentionally neglect certain schedules. Because if you just had zero social schedule for an entire 6 months, you're probably going to hate your life. And so some people will work way too hard. I call that becoming obsessive. Some people will put their eating schedule on hold, and they won't eat until like at the middle of the night. They don't eat all day because they're so quote unquote busy, and they just neglect that. And then they wonder why they have headaches, for example, or they feel stressed out. So eating. Some people, again, they don't sleep, right? They don't have that good sleep schedule. They don't have a good exercise schedule. They all compound, right? So usually people are missing one or two of these schedules. So what you got to do is you got to sit down with your calendar, and you've got to think, okay, this is from a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, right?
No.
He's going to tap in. I'm glad you guys are in here. We're going to get Joe back in, because Joe has to give us the rest of his game, man. We just got to get it, okay? So we're going to get Joe back in as soon as possible.
Let me ask you, Devin, have you ever felt like at a point in life you were once young, dumb, and broke? And if so, how did you, transfer? Or if not, how were you never like that? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, it's weird, man, because I've been one of each, and even in certain periods, I'm just one at one time. So, I've been all of them at once, and I've been one sometimes, right? So, with the young and dumb portion, it's easy to be dumb. Of course, we're all, for the most part, young, but I think that's more of a mentality thing, right? Is you have a young mentality? Do you think like young people think, right? One of our questions here we didn't ask yet was, right, how to get out of that high school mindset, right? How to get out of that, oh, I'm just doing things because I'm being told to do things. So, okay, cool, right? Like, how do you actually go from, okay, I'm doing things because this is what I was told to do, to I'm doing things for this reason, for this purpose, because this is my end goal in life, right? And to go from, such a base level of just being told what to do to telling yourself this is what I have to do because I am a grown man who has priorities, who has goals, and who has mission and drive, right? And so that's one of the young portions. So in order to get out of that, I just realized, well, the people who were in that mindset, did I admire these people? Did I want to be like these people? Did I say, oh, this is super cool, I want to stay like this? No, I was like, I grow out of it. And so I in the back of my mind, even I was really hoping that at some point I was going to stop doing it. So I just said, okay, well, I already think it, so why not just do it now? Why not actually just get out of it, right? Because the other people around me aren't, so why would I waste my time with them when they're purposely staying behind because they hope somebody else is going to pick them up, right? And then the dumb portion, read. Like you said, read books, get mentors. When you don't know, somebody does. So find out who knows it and get to know them, okay? Because the least you can do, if you don't know yourself, you can find who knows it and they can know it for you, right? So know people, talk to people, network. If you're still in school, ask your teachers or ask your professors, right? Network, talk to people, ask them, hey, can I get 15 minutes of your time? If you, can we go out on coffee? I'll pay for the coffee. Get to know these people because they have knowledge and they are willing to give it to you if you just sit there and say please, right? With a smile. So get the knowledge from these other people, okay? And then that's how you get out of the dumb portion, right? And then the broke portion, that comes with time, that comes with effort, that comes comes with the smart work over time, right? So when it comes to the broke portion, you're going to be broke because especially if you're in college, you're probably going to be some format of broke, right? So plan out your life in steps. Plan out your life to where at least you can be debt free. That's the minimum goal. Be debt free, okay? At least we're at least going to go for debt free where we're not losing money, right? We're not negative in our income, okay? So the main ways to do that is spend less than you make. So you want to make more than you spend, okay? So and it's something just very simple, right? Write down, like this same thing with social media. Write down every single penny you spend, because that'll make you sit there and look like, man, I'm spending way too much money. So every time you pay for anything, every time you swipe your card, every time you put your credit card in somewhere, anytime you spend $1, write it down in a book, and then look at that book at the end of the week and say, gosh, dang, okay, I might need to stop. Right?
Yeah.
That's one of the easy ways, because it's a brain trick. That's the reason credit cards get off on people like that. It's because it's a brain trick where they don't realize I don't have this money, right? Because in their mind, well, the limit says 2,000, so I have to. No, you don't. You don't have 2,000. They have 2,000, and you're going to pay them back. So you better not keep swiping their card. So this is the portion where you have to realize spend less than I'm making, because I need to be smarter with the money I'm using. And then after you do that, and not in negative, right? You're at least, let's say you're at zero, right? But you're not negative. You're not making money either. You're just at zero, okay? When you do begin work a job, when you do begin making money now, because you should be able to come some form of profit at this point, because you're not negative. Only buy assets. Only buy things that make you more money. The way you can identify these things is when you pay for the thing. Say, how much money can this thing generate me? Or how many skills or how much knowledge can this thing generate? So whether this be a mentorship, whether this be, right, a course, whether this be, an actual asset where it's like a watch or some of that sort, right? Say, how much will this thing actually make me in the long run? What is this thing worth? And does it increase in value or does it decrease in value over time?
Yeah.
Right? And do I apply my money to this thing? If it decreases in value, don't apply your money to it. If it increases in value, apply your money to it. So I always tell people, get knowledge first, because knowledge is something that you can always use and it always can grow because it always builds upon itself. So I would say that over just buying, a stock or anything of that sort originally. I would say by knowledge and by courses and by this type of things, because those things actually can build upon themselves off the jump. So that's the ways I would tell people to apply the money to get out of the broke portion. But that's just the way I think, at least. So you got some game though?
I would say honestly, it's analyzing yourself. Because, you know what I'm saying, you really don't know where to start if you don't think you already started and you don't think life is just going to give you what you want. So number one, you got to analyze and be real with yourself. Look in the mirror and put your life on a time frame. Like a line graph from 0 to 100. Look at where you at, look at where you've been, look at where you want to go, and look at the actions you do daily to see if it's pushing you closer to 0 or closer to 100. So once you understand if you're heading the right way or the wrong way, then you can start adding more of those things and taking away some things that are pulling you back the wrong way. And that's when we talk about, credit score, things like that. It's also about like learning and teaching yourself some things. And it's kind of, today's society make it really hard to not be dumb. Because literally you can learn everything in such a quick span. So it's kind of like I'm always done because I can always be learning things, right? So hold on, I'm going to add Joe back right now. He's ready. Yeah, so for me, I feel like it's always just about being honest with yourself and seeing if you're going to be where you're going to be at based on what you're doing. Because some people are like, yeah, if I just keep drinking, keep partying, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be nice. I don't need to do anything else. I don't need to analyze my budget. Like people don't want to, take accountability. And that's number one is accountability. And that's really what's going to push you to the next level is when you hold yourself to a level of standards that no one else is going to hold you to. Unless, you're married or anything like that. So that's my 2 cents. Just be honest with yourself. We got you back.
I'm back.
Yeah,
Don't die. Didn't give me a notification at all.
Oh, all good. But we can.
But we got it all plugged up now. We're good to go.
Okay, that's perfect.
Let me just go ahead and throw us a question out there. So, some people might feel like, oh, I want to get into real estate, but I feel like too many people do it. Or I might want to make clothes, but I feel like too many people do it. So let me ask y'all, do y'all feel like for society to be, running efficiently and for some people to have a lot of money, that some people have to be poor? Do you think that's just the way a capitalist system runs, that some people have to be poor and some people are going to be rich? And it's kind of hard to, break that cycle or break that chain based on whichever one you were born into, mindset-wise and environment-wise. What y'all feel about that?
I think it has 0% to do with capitalism and everything to do with broken world and, sin would be my answer to that, to be honest. I mean, there's going to be people who are going to be poor not because of a system, but because of their choices. And the choices come from, a lot of times it's generational poverty, sure, but a lot of times all those choices are just coming from a, sinful heart of a broken person, right? So it has nothing to do with the system, right? I mean, under any system, there's going to be poor people and rich people because of, greed or sin or just whatever, right? I mean, and no, everyone could potentially go make plenty of money and do fine. It just comes down to, are you doing anything about it? Now, some people, you're born and you're kind of, you don't know what you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. So if you're growing up in an area that's like, pretty tough, like Los Angeles, in an area where there's gangs. I remember watching this TED Talk about this guy who's trying to get out of gang life, right? When he's like 12, they're like trying to make him pull the trigger, and do stuff like that, right? And he like doesn't have a dad for whatever reason. So it's like his mom, and they're like threatening his mom all the time. And it's like, so he's like coerced into becoming a gang member, for some cartel group or whatever he was talking about. And, in order to get out, he literally just had to like sneak away with his mom to the other side of the country, right? Because, for example, gangs go across so many different cities, right? That guy right there, he made the choices to get out, and it was dangerous though, right? So sometimes it's a different ball game for some people. And his definition of success would just be living in freedom outside of a gang, right? And that, like, right there, I have the utmost respect for, versus making $1 million or not. I care less if that guy ever made $1 million. First off, that'd be incredible success story. But two, even if he didn't, that guy just sounds amazing, right? Because he's trying to get out of a life that he's figuring into, where other people just fall into it and then just give up, right? There's a lot that goes into that, in so many different situations. And I think the takeaway, if you are well off, if you have two parents, for example, that's not most people now, right? You have two parents growing up. If your parents do, teach you things, right? And care about you and give you love, right? You have a duty to go help some people then. That's what I would say, right? Is you should go and help some people. And if everybody was just a little bit more philanthropic, right? Just trying to help some other people, like Jesus, right? There'd be a lot less poverty, is what I would say. So.
No, I agree. I think it's very interesting, especially in the society we live in, where people are they blame everything on capitalism, like literally everything. Like the reason the world is not amazing because capitalism is just like not exactly right. There's some nuance there. That's a little bit, right? So from what I can tell, at least, is that from what a lot of people struggle with, is that it's not these people are just it's in the society that people should be poor. But I think a lot of people accidentally fall into this mindset of I'm here, so that's just where I'm supposed to be, right? And so they just fall into that where I'm already at the bottom, or I'm already at a certain level, and this is where people like me are supposed to be. It's like, well, that's up for debate thing, right? That's something you can expound upon, because people just live whatever they have and live with their means, and they have no intention on becoming bigger, becoming growing themselves, because they're at a fixed mindset. And we can talk. We really gonna get into that, right? A little bit about the fixed versus growth mindset. But I think a lot of people are in fixed mindsets where they say, "I've been told I should be at this level. My surroundings are this level. This is the only level I'm at. I won't ever move from this level, right? Because this is all the level I know. No other level, even if they're unattainable, right? So why would they even try? And I've heard that so often. People are like, I would do that, but that's not for me. It's like, what do you mean it's not for you? Being rich is not for you. What are you talking about? Like being wealthy, being someone who works really hard is not for you. What? Like how does that work exactly? So it's just something that I think people get stuck in a fixed mindset. It's like, this is all I know. This is all I'm capable of. I don't want to do anything else because I've been told this is all I can do. So I think that's where it comes from, a lot of at the home, right? With them being taught. That's why we need strong families. You need strong Christian held families, right? Where they held together beliefs, where your marriage, your children come first, and that's what drives the families. And God drives the family. You know what I'm saying? It's not just like, oh well, I'm bored today, or I don't feel like raising my kids. I'm gonna throw them at the school system. I'm gonna throw them in the daycare, and I'm gonna leave them, and I'm never gonna talk to them again. It's like, or I don't encourage my kids on a day-to-day basis. I don't tell them, hey, come work with me, come to this. I just tell them, hey, it's part of life. I guess your mom and dad are broke, so I guess you'll be broke too. It's like, what? What do you mean? So I think it all starts at the home, and I think people place everything on capitalism when there's so many nuances, so many. But that's my take. That's my take on it.
Just a quick story time. This might sound wild, but the way I wanted to first start better in my life is when I was young. I was too young to have a job, right? I was 14 years old, and I was like, how can I make some money? Because I knew I had some older friends, and they were going to work and stuff like that. So I was like, I want to make money, but I can't get a job. So it all started with me just researching how to make money. So I started doing survey, and I didn't make any money, but maybe $10, but it was the greatest $10 in my life, because I earned it all by myself. And then after that, it just started taking like, oh, how to be rich, what is rich, like what am I doing wrong? Like just, some of the YouTube videos were like complete trash and some were good. It was all about me being young, just opening myself up to these things, right? And so it's all about like trial and error, because you're not gonna know what's the right thing to do. Only God knows the plans he has for you, right? So you kind of gotta just put yourself out there and just have like crazy faith and really just believe in yourself and believe that even if your business fails, you still gonna learn from it. So everything is really gonna be a lesson or either a blessing. So that's how I take it. It's just always just trying, even when you don't want to.
Don't fight me, guys, but I want to pivot a little bit, okay? And you let me know if this pivot is too strong. But I really want to know from everybody here, especially, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Joe, okay? I need to know, how can you tell the audience? Because we talked about some of the mindsets, some of the money. I just got to know, man, because this has helped me out, okay? How can we find the right woman, man? Like, how can, we guide our life and we can focus our mind to be able to find the correct woman for us who can help us on our mission and help us on this journey in our spiritual battles, you know what I mean? How do we find that? Where do you find it? What do you got to do personally and internally to grow that? To put us on game, man.
So I'm going to recommend a book that everyone read, and I'll say it twice so everyone can get it, but it's Single, Dating, Engaged, Married by Ben Stewart. Single, Dating, Engaged, Married by Ben Stewart. I recommended this to Christopher the other day too. So, and I would recommend this to any person who's, in college, high school too, I read this book and it really shaped a lot of my dating going forward. And funny enough, once I actually implemented the strategies, that's when my wife and I started getting serious, and that ended up working out the way that it did, which is pretty awesome. The book kind of takes you through 4 different sections of life, right? So single. So if you're single, the biggest pressure by culture is to be dating, right? The biggest pressure by culture is to be dating, because if you're dating, it means you're attractive, it means you're loved, it's a status, right? And so we don't want to base things off of status, right? And so the book goes through, it's a biblical, based book by a pastor, right? And he just talks about singleness is a gift, right? When you're single, you have more time to serve, you have more time to grow, you have more time to do whatever you need to be doing. And in the book sense, it's going to be a Christ-centered sense, right? So it's a gift. The shortest amount of time in your life is actually the amount of time that you're single. So you should actually cherish it, right? You should look at that differently, because the mindset is all wrong, that there's something wrong with you if you're not dating. There's nothing wrong with you if you're not dating somebody, right? And you shouldn't feel bad. And I think women feel bad about that a lot. I need to be dating somebody, right? Your value and worth does not come from the person that you're dating. And they cannot provide that for you. And that is not a healthy thing, right? They are not going to fix you, right? That's it. That's a you and God thing. God will fix you. No one else can, right? So development. So use that singleness to become who you want to become, really doing the things that you love. And what the book talks about is don't go on a dating, you could go on a dating app. I actually had somebody meet on a pen pal, and they're Christians and whatever. And they're married and have 3 kids now. But what the point that he's making in the book is, like, don't go searching to date someone. Spend your time in places that are valuable to you, and you'll meet someone who has the same value, right? So for example, volunteering. My wife and I met each other at Passion, which is a Christian conference down in Atlanta. If you've heard of it, you guys should go check it out. It's pretty awesome. That's where we met. And that's just something we both care about, right? It's a Christian conference in January, start your year off right, whatever. And we met there, and that's how we met. We were doing something we both loved and cared about, and happened to be part of a similar group where she randomly got invited, and then we hit it off, and so on and so forth, right? But do things that you love that are valuable to you, and you'll meet someone who's valuable to you, right? Who has the same values, right? Because that's where people will usually settle, is on the values, right? They'll find someone really attractive in the dating phase, and they'll get sort of like stuck with them, right? They'll sort of like, oh, I need this person. They'll become codependent. That's the word I was thinking of, right? And dating, instead of a status or feeling good, because so many people live with each other nowadays, where I think it gets really confusing and messy, and it hurts if it breaks, right? So there's a good line in there. If you're a man and you're dating a young woman, and you're talking to her, the first date, be very clear about your intentions. And what you do, this is straight from the book, I did not make this up. You basically sit down and you talk about your intentions. Hey, and your intentions for dating is to figure out if you're supposed to marry this person. You're supposed to figure out how you marry. You're not dating someone for 6 years, right? I think Ben recommends like 18 months or so, right? You're figuring out, am I supposed to marry this person or not? And that's all dating is. And you're respectful. You're very respectful of her, right? And in fact, the book goes into treating her like a sister in Christ, right? So that's some no-nos there, right? With the sister, right? So that's what it talks about. Because when you get physical, things start to be a lot different, right? You start to really cloud your judgment, because the physical stuff is you will look over things that are detrimental long-term. You will settle on things that you actually care about because it feels good, for example. example. And that is not a healthy way to figure out if you're supposed to marry this person or not. And so you sit down, though, you have this conversation like, hey, listen, I like you. I like where this is going. I want to date you. I want to get to know you better. I'm trying to figure out if you will end up being my wife, and I'd like for you to do the same. But if it ever feels like it's wrong, and this is where you just give her a way out, just tell me, we can break it off. You don't have to feel pressure to stay with me. I only want you to want to be with me if you just really love who I am, and I'm not going to put on a facade. And I don't want you to put on a facade. I just want you to be you, and we're going to figure this out together. But I'm really enjoying what's going on right now, right? And you just sort of lay this foundational groundwork with your lady, and that way you never go through this phase where it's like, oh, she wants to break up, but she doesn't want to hurt your feelings. It's like, no, just tell me, just break up with me. It'll be fine. It's not a big deal. We're mature adults, right? We're trying to figure out if we're getting married. This is not a status thing, and you're very clear about those things, and that dating is going to go a lot better. Because if you do want to break up, it's going to be clean. It's not going to hurt as bad. You're not going to lose all your friends over it. Like some people's like, oh, they're with her friends now, and now they're not mine or whatever. You're going to kill that drama. Because if that drama happens again, it's just going to leave you kind of burned. So in the engaged, right? So the engaged is like getting your life together with her, right? So trying to get those together. And when you're married, it's supposed to be a reflection of Christ, right? So I would just read that book. But most people are probably in that single or dating category. You can read more about the engaged married. But that's what I would say. And that really helped me. It worked out really well for my wife and I. We just felt like we could talk about things. And the whole thing was like, no, here's some things that are non-negotiable. Was that you or not? And we would just talk about things. We're very open and honest and direct. And it's just good. It's a great foundational book. I hope that answers your question.
How everybody doing? Thank y'all for joining up, but we're going to go ahead and get right back into the topic. So
I've had some more joking questions, some more fun ones. I'm thinking, I mean, I'm going to hit her with a fun one, then I'm going to hit her with a serious one just so we can combo, you know what I mean? So for young men, Joe, okay, and Chris, what do you think men should be focused on, especially in these early 20s and then, late teens? What should they focus on? Should they focus on money? Should they be focused on women? Or should they be focused on status? Which one should they be focused on and why? Joe, tell us what you think, man.
We talked about this question. It's so funny. None of them. You should focus on zero of those things. Because if you focus on money, status, women, again, you're just going down. Like, that's not the purpose of why you're here, right? There's so many more reasons that you are here on this earth. And so, and instead you should be figuring out what your purpose is and your vision, right? And what's going to happen is, like, again, God's got a plan for you, right? So he's going to put you with the right woman, if that's meant to be, right? That is going to be with that same vision. And so what you need to do is figure yourself out. So self-awareness is self-deception for most people. I love it when people say they're self-aware. They're liars. They're lying to themselves for sure. Another good book called Self-Deception. You should read that. It's very eye-opening. If you think you're self-aware, you're probably not, right? That would be an egotistic mindset. There's another good book called Ego is the Enemy that'll hit you right in the face that you should read as well, right? So books on books on books here. Read. Understand yourself. I think that's so important. And so just get to know yourself. Get to know why you're here. Answer some of those big questions, right? So who are you and why are you here? What's the meaning of life? If you don't have answers to questions, you're going to constantly moving around, drifting left and right, falling in quicksand here and there and a bunch of potholes, and I would prefer for you to know what your path is and be able to stick to that path. If you don't know which path it is, there's a million paths nowadays, right? There's a billion things that you could be doing with every second of your day, and trying to sift through that without a good worldview, based on truth, on the side of truth, right? That's why my podcast exists. We base it on truth. If you don't base it on truth, if you're basing it on these moving targets, you're just going to really struggle with all three of those things. Because if you think about it, right, like status can be used for the advantage of God's kingdom, for example, right? That can be a good thing. But if your focus is status, then that becomes your idol, right? Again, being married can be a really great thing that builds not only her relationship, your relationship with Christ, or she can become your idol and you forget about Jesus, for example, right? The same thing with money, right? Money is a fuel for a mission, or it become your idol. Right. So everything can become an idol. So what I'm going to say is figure out what you think about Jesus first. And that's what you should be focusing on when you're young. And if you have that really strong foundation, connection, and relationship, then you'll be pretty set up. And if you have a million questions about that, another book to read, The Case for Christ, especially if you're an analytical person who's like, well, what if they just stole the body? What if they did this? What if the manuscripts are messed up? Because that's a common thing that people say nowadays. What if the manuscripts are mixed up or something? What if they made a mistake? What if there was corruption? All this stuff. Read that book because there's just so much historical evidence for Jesus Christ's resurrection. It's insane. My very first podcast is explaining Homer versus Jesus in a historical context and which one's more likely to have even existed. There's like a few hundred manuscripts that, correspond to Homer existing, and there's like 12,000 that correspond Jesus' death and resurrection. And they teach Homer in school, Greek philosopher, like a fact, right? And they teach Jesus like a myth. And they'll talk about Gandhi and all these different people, right? And they'll talk about all these things in school, but they don't talk about Jesus. And even though Jesus is the most historically fully backed up ancient figure ever. So
I feel like that's something too. It's like what comes with chasing your dreams and what comes with bettering yourself is the hatred. We could talk a little bit about that just because whenever you start to change your mindset, people start to notice. Even if you don't have the materialistic things, the way you start carrying yourself, the way you stop doing what you were doing in the past, people are like, oh, what's getting to him? He's not partying anymore. He's not smoking. He's not drinking. He's starting to dress different. Like, what is up with him? And so it's like Jesus had the most haters, but he also had the strongest followers, So it's kind of like you got to take the good with the bad in a way. So I feel like this is something you have to be mentally tough in order to take that path he has for you. It's all about being mentally tough. So work on that. Look in the mirror every day. Tell yourself you can do it. And you really, you might not do it to your best capabilities, or you might, exceed your own capabilities. So you'll never know unless you try. So always try and believe in yourself because nobody else gonna believe in you.
No, I think that's a bar. And I mean, I have a different perspective, right? And I want to hear what y'all got to say about it, right? I'm going to tell for any young man out there what you should do. Chase money, right? Hear me out. The reason I say chase money is because money is going to bring you women to status, right? Then once you got all that, you're going to realize it's a waste of time. And then you're going to say, I have done all this for no reason and I still feel no happiness. I don't feel any love. Everybody's using me. I'm empty on the inside. And then you're going to say, well, what do I have to do now? And then magically, all of a sudden, you're going to come to God, right? And you're going to say, I think this religion thing that I was doing in the first place is actually what I should be doing long term. And this thing actually means significantly more than any of these materialist things could do for me, right? And so I say chase money just so you can realize you should stop chasing money, right?
So you're gonna drop down and hit rock bottom. That was a good save. I didn't know where he was going for a second.
Appreciate it. I try. You know what I'm saying? They call me Kobe in the clutch, but point being, okay, I think we're reaching the end a little bit. I know Joe has his really precious time, so we don't want to hold him on too long. But I have one more question for the panel, and I think it's really intuitive, especially for people who especially are business minded or people who are just really hard work and they don't want their work to be waste per se, right? So my question is, should people be networking or a lone wolf, and then why should they be one or the other?
Wow, great question. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I think lone wolfing or networking, those are the two options, right? And you're trying to decide, okay, so this is an important thing to understand. So think of anyone you look up to, anyone you can think of, right? C.S. Lewis, authors, Steve Jobs, I don't know, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, anyone you can think of, right? Kobe Bryant, any single awesome person who you look up to, right? And then ask yourself the question, did they get there alone? And there's your answer, right? Is because everything that you want, you can't do alone. And the reason that you want to do it alone is you're frustrated with people, probably, or you might have trust issues. And I'm sure there's other things that you could be than that, but those are probably the most two common that I've felt when I want to be a lone wolf, is I am frustrated, tired, don't want to put in the effort with people, or I'm just in a phase of not wanting to trust people, let people in, and it's usually a thing that has everything to do with me, like lack of vulnerability, for example. You don't want to let people in. People aren't going to know you, and they're not going to want to help you. They don't know your vision or who you are, right? So you need to be networking. Right? Excuse me. The incredible thing about college is you do get to network with a lot of young people who will presumably go be successful, like these two wonderful gentlemen right here, getting to know these guys are going to do some big things in life, right? So getting to know them, network with those guys, you never know what your friends are going to be doing 10 or 15 years from now, right? So go make friends, go be people, go be with people, right? I saw a lot of people in college pick fights, right? They're like, all the ego stuff, right? You gotta eat your ego as fast as you can and just get rid of it and just let that thing go, because it always wants you to look better, faster, stronger. And, whenever you let go of that, you get better at sports, you get better at school, you do better with your friendships, when you get that sort of like peace, that's going to be a focus on Christ, right? So be networking. You probably have a network through your church, you probably have a network through your parents, you have a network through your friends, you have a network through your job. There's all these places where you can actually get places. I did a video and a podcast with Joe Schlagen. We're talking about there's 6 to 7 degrees of separation, but there's actually 6. I think I said 7 on the podcast. Neither here nor there. Basically, if so let's say I know Christopher, and if Christopher introduced me to all of his people that he knew, that would be Christopher's my first degree. All of Christopher's friends would be my second degree of connections. And then one of his connections introduced me to all of their connections, and so on and so forth. 6 degrees down, you would be able to talk or connect with everyone in the world, right? So the power of knowing people, you could talk to anybody you wanted to on the other side of the planet, if you're able to network and connect with people really well. And I think that's a skill not taught in college. I think that's a skill that's taught by your parents, and unfortunately, if you don't have, someone who's teaching you that, learn it from stuff like this, right? Listen to this podcast every single week. Listen to On the Side of Truth every single week, come listen, learn from people who did have that growing up, because I did have that growing up. I was lucky enough to have my dad teach me a lot of that kind of stuff because he's like, networks around the world with astrophysicists because that's his field, and he goes to these conferences and does stuff like that, right? I had some through Southwest Winter Advantage. I've got people teaching me stuff. I know Christopher, and both these guys have it going on, right? So come to these things, learn about stuff like that, right? Week in, week out, and you'll learn how to do it yourself, even if you weren't taught as a kid.
Yo, that is fantastic. And I'm a just speak on my route and how I do things. So I feel like there's ups and downs, right? And I feel like when you're on your way up and you're at your upness, you need to be networking with people and just really putting yourself out there. You always need to network, but when you're feeling good, you really need to make sure you're spreading that joy and everything like that around in the world. But I feel like whenever I'm in my lows and my most bottom, I'm always a lone wolf because I want to make sure to pull myself out of those situations. Because I feel like as a man, you have to be able to be comfortable with being a lone wolf. You have to also be comfortable with being a sponge to, social activities. And I feel like that's what makes you like powerful is being that lone wolf who can network and like knowing when is the right time to do so. Because sometimes you don't need to network if you're in the wrong environment, and sometimes you don't need the lone wolf if you're in a great environment to network with people. So it's all just about knowing when to be either or. So I feel like I've definitely gained a lot about myself when I'm a lone wolf, just focusing on my habits, my thoughts, my process, everything like that. But when I'm networking with people, I kind of learn more about them and how they did things and like tying it together with how I do things. So both are important, but you got to know when and when not to do those.
I don't have anything else to say, man. Oh my, like y'all took all the game. Like I'm on empty right now, man. I don't know what to say. You know what I mean? But I think you should network. I think as the guy said, it's the most helpful thing you probably could do because no one comes in this life and fights through all this stuff to be alone at the end of the day. You're doing this for a reason. It's only makes it better when you have other people around you who encourage you, who work with you, who can tell you, hey, I know this person, I know this thing. You don't know it, I got you, no problem. Who will help you out when you don't have anybody else to help you out because you're only got two pairs of hands. You can't do everything. And if you try to do everything, you're going to be in a significantly worse situation because you try to do everything. So contact people, stay in contact with people, always touch back with people. Never, don't cut ties, don't burn bridges. Try to keep people close to you because people can always help you out and vice versa because the more you give out, the more it comes back. So just keep that in mind because networking can save your life in the most literal sense, okay? But, do we have any last questions? Do we have any last comments from the guests or from you, Coop? We got it because I think, man, this is straight heat. I'm on empty right now, dog. I don't even know my brain is leaving.
Yeah, no, this has been great. And the only thing I want to say is thank you for coming on, Joe. Thank you for, everybody in the comment section watching. We're going to be posting the clips soon just in case you missed certain parts and everything like that. That's all I want to say. And if you're on your journey to becoming a better person, to put yourself in a better financial situation, just know here on the Broken Silence and on Joe's podcast, you have our support and we want to see you be in better positions. And that's the whole purpose of why we do this, right? So just thank y'all. And yeah, I'm going to let y'all close it out.
Hey guys, check out On the Side of Truth on basically every social media, YouTube. I'm going to have these guys on here within the next 2 weeks. We'll probably do a YouTube live, try out that platform. So On the Side of Truth, just put that on YouTube. Brand new channel. It's not looking wonderful yet, but there's like 1 or 2 videos. I'm about to upload 17 videos though. So just go ahead and hit subscribe, hit the notification. There's going to be 17. I just had a new podcast from a couple weeks ago, just finally finished. Oh my gosh. And this is really, really important. If that video gets 100 likes and 100 shares that I'm going to be posting about my podcast, it was with a pilot who's I interviewed. He said he would take me on an airplane and land me in the Tennessee River, on the river. So I need y'all to give me 100 likes and 100 shares on that YouTube video. Please, please, please do that. And subscribe and tell your friends about it because once you're subscribed, your friends are subscribed, you guys get to hear from our wonderful co-hosts here on my podcast, On the Side of Truth. So that's going to be really good. Thank you so much for having me. Christopher, Devin, appreciate you guys. You guys are such sharp young men and you're going to do great things in life.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Oh, that was beautiful, man. Tap into Joe, tap into, podcast, man. Look, we got to get him to 100 now because I want to see this, right? I might be there recording. I want to see this, okay? So get him to 100 likes and 100 shares, man. I'm finna use all my accounts to try to add to it, okay? So get him to 100 shares and 100 likes, okay?
Yeah, video will be posted within the next 10 minutes. It'll pop up and it's going to say Mike, the interview with Mike the pilot or something like that. So just look for the pilot thing. Hit a like, hit a share on that.
So that sounds perfect. And so all great things have to come to an end. This was another great episode of the Broken Silence podcast, which is my boy D-Lay. That's the one and only me. I'm doing this thing, and we just had a great guest, Joe Ignace. Is that how you say it? Ignace? I don't want to mess it up. There we go. Joe Ignace with a beautiful, amazing, don't take this offense, but beautiful, amazing wife of his. You know, I'm jealous that I need to get, he need to put me on. We're going to talk later, so he put me on some more games on how I can find, you know, my one and only, okay? We're going to talk about that after the pod, okay, guys?
Yeah.
But another great episode, but, you know, and our amazing fellow co-host, tell them who you are, man, and tell them what we're going to do. We're going to tap out.
Boom. Thank y'all for coming. Like my main man D-Lay said, we just glad y'all came. Go tap out Joe podcast. He dropping a video. We're going to hit 100. And we're going to see y'all Sunday with another special guest. I'm not going to tell y'all who it is because we going crazy and crazy and crazy. But this weekend going to be amazing too. Another banger. But we'll see y'all Sunday. And thank y'all for checking out another great episode of Broken Silence.
We out.